Hi Leo, welcome to your April reading. Okay, so just a reminder that we are shuffling through as we read Jungian Tarot, which is using the archetypes to understand our mindset, why we think the way we do, why we process the way we do, and hopefully have some astrological insight as well by looking at the seasons and patterns that we know and have been keeping track of for more than a millennia. Okay, so this is not predictive tarot. This is just a way to process and stay on top of the seasons, the transits. So let's begin. April for you is about healing. The reading doesn't really start until the 7th. So we have a little bit of time. The healing has a lot to do with you just getting back to you more and more, perhaps a version of you from before puberty, if that makes sense. Not to be weird, but like an idealized version you had of yourself when you were young, before sexuality became a thing, when you were all brain. I love that your eyes start off as part of your brain when you're forming in the womb. Our external brains. Now, you feeling this healing and empowerment and really getting back to some really idealized, innocent version of yourself, it also puts you back on track emotionally, and that, of course, attracts romance. When you feel good, everyone is attracted to you. Now, I say that the reading doesn't really start until the 7th because between the 7th and the 17th, we have a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that's perfected on the 12th. So for you, this is about how this healing lights you up. You just have a different effect on people. They can feel that, that you know where you're going. They can feel that you're, wow. They can feel that you're done with the pain. This is what makes reading cards so exciting. It's stuff like this. If what we're doing is trying to understand why we feel the way we feel, then these moments are so affirming, and it takes so much of the pressure off of you to know it and feel it and have the astrology reflect it and then have the right cards come up and like, yeah, you are done with it. It's right there. I have it written there. You're back. You're back. You not found the road back. I don't like that. I really like the traditional meaning of this card, which is that you realized once again that your road is your karma and you're always on that road and you've never been off that road. You just sometimes forget where that road is. If that makes sense? So you're back. And being back means leaving behind a lot of pain. And one of the things that can happen is that it can boost an older connection, which you thought maybe you were over, or that was marred with a lot of pain on both sides, and maybe your trauma really added to that as well. And now that you don't have the trauma, you may find yourself pining for that person or somehow calling them back into your life. It's very easy to do that. See the extended from last month for clarity on that. Inside jokes. So an old connection, something that you had a lot of trouble letting go of, or maybe never fully let go of, it comes back. And maybe it comes back to teach you something. Maybe it comes back because once your flame is reignited, anyone out there who has a little bit of you, it lights them up as well. Whatever it is, it's totally and directly tied to you lighting back up. It's about you. It's not about anybody else. And then we have Venus moving into Pisces on the 5th, so tomorrow. and Mars moving into Pisces on the 14th. So you're really set up very well for some romance, some crushes, some people following you around a little bit. It's easy to get spicy, but with this particular spread so far, I would not recommend it. Your wounds are by no means healed. They're healing, and it would be a shame to put yourself in the line of something that could open, one of those back up. So I would wait if I were you, but it is going to be very tempting. Get in like a little bit of trouble. I prefer a little bit of trouble, get in just enough trouble that it's like innocent, that you could get away with it. Whatever. Let's see, next thing. Only do it if you know you can handle it. If you're gonna get like attached because you're still hurt, or it's gonna be some like douchey guy and you're gonna get attached because it's just, or a girl or whomever, and you're just gonna get attached because your wounds are being acknowledged and you're so vulnerable, and then it's gonna be someone that you're particularly attracted to because it's someone who already on a subconscious level is going to leave. Don't do this. This is totally avoidable. Venus moving into Pisces does not have to mean this for you. Don't do this. You'll know. Well, how will I know? Because that person will not be worthy, and you'll know from jump, and you'll just be trying to talk yourself into it, and you really don't need to talk yourself into it. Just don't do it. Just don't. Just don't. Because it's, I was thinking of calling the reading Relationship Inferno, and instead I'm just going to call it Inferno, because if you're not ready, it could, you're lit up, and if you're not ready and you get into something, it can cause, fire. So, now, the lunar nodes square Saturn in Aquarius, and it's tough because no matter how much you love the person, if all that's left is you feeling like you owe them something, it's definitely not something you can do anymore. It's like charity. Yeah, I've stayed out of charity for so long, but I just can't anymore. So now I have to leave. The breakups during the squares are very possible, but if you have a solid foundation and it's based on kindness, it can go the other way, and it can be really wonderful and a deepening of the connection. But it's a deepening because you get even more real with each other. So the breakup or the deepening is the result of the lunar node squaring Saturn and creating these very real conversations between people, and either that's going to cement your connection or it's going to tear you apart. And Saturn's logic here is, if a conversation tears your relationship apart, if a very real conversation tears your relationship apart, was it a solid relationship? The counter to this would be like Mars and Pisces is like, well, does this conversation even need to happen? If you love me, why do we even need to talk about this? Well, we need to talk about it because if we don't talk about it now, it's going to turn into a huge problem later on, says Saturn. And Pisces says, what's later on? Time doesn't exist. Nonsense, and then breakups. Because Saturn's just not in the mood anymore after having to deal with the lunar nodes being in Gemini and Sagittarius. Saturn's just not in the mood anymore. Like, it's fixed lunar nodes. They mean business. Saturn means business. There's no room here. There's no wriggle room. There's no give. These are conversations that are going to make or break people and their bonds with each other. And perhaps that's how it should be. Or maybe that's just the Saturn. Maybe that's just the Leo in Saturn. Saturn in Leo talking. 9 of Pentacles. So here's the other cool thing about this is that people are so jealous of you basically just doing your job that they want to criticize you, they want to talk about you, they want to try to sabotage you, and it's all very confusing because why are you doing that? Like, I haven't done anything to you. We are not in competition. I know you feel this a lot anyway, but it's so much more pronounced right now. Like the confusion you feel. Like, we are not in competition. You are taking me just living my life very personally, and I don't know how to help you with that, right? If you let it get to you, it's going to turn into paranoia and anxiety and then paranoia. If you start thinking that these people are just out to get you, it's not that they're out to get you. They just can't stand to see you doing well. And you just have to deal with it. I'm sorry, there's no magic cure here that I can tell you that, oh, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay when you learn how to deal with it. If you decide right now that whatever you are and whatever you're going to be is going to be because of you and not because of what people say or don't say or how loud they clap or don't clap, if you decide in April that what you end up doing with your life, what you stand for, what it means to you, what you mean to people, what you're known for, what you're remembered for is in your hands, not in some arbitrary job or profession even, or some group of people, some nameless, faceless mob for some. If you take the power back from all of that and give it to yourself, something really profound can happen for you in April because you take complete responsibility for yourself. And it's not that you haven't before, it's not that, it's just that you give so much of your power away in this wanting to be accepted and wanting your shine to be normalized, which is so sad for both parties. You know, you're trying to make the impossible happen. You're trying to fit sunshine in a box. And, you know, the people that you're genuinely, openly trying to help do this with you are just baffled and humiliated and shamed by the entire act, because why are you asking them to do this? They're already completely baffled by what you are. And now you're like asking them to help you contain it, which is like just such a slap in the face. Like, it just doesn't work for anyone. And so the quicker you take responsibility for your life, the quicker you own your shine, the faster you get on this, you know, the Chariot is there. It's like this almost mocking first card. Like, why do you keep forgetting you're on this road? And why do you keep forgetting you're in the driver's seat? And it's Aries season, and this Chariot card just keeps coming up because I think that it is a time where we're forced to see that, you know, our path, whatever it may be, however many loops it may take, it's ours. And we do have some ownership over it, and we should have some pride about it. You know, and not kind of sit back and judge our journey as this thing that we have this enormous amount of control over. I mean, sure, we have, you know, somewhat we have control over what we're doing, but this larger idea of fate, if you believe in that, you know, does put the Chariot on this road, and that's a road you're staying on regardless of how you feel about it. Now you can make that road better, right? The Chariot does say you can go left, you can go right, or you can find that middle way within the path that you're on. And that middle way is always going to be best, but for you, things get so extreme. You want to find the middle way. You're interested in being with everyone else and like everyone else. But unfortunately, you are one of those signs that has to pick left or right and can't be up in the mix in the same way. And I think you know that, you know, and yes, that's sad, but at the risk of sounding really cheesy, you know, being a star isn't easy. And it rhymed, so it's like even more cheesy. Okay, I wasn't planning on doing any of that. Now, your intuition needs a little bit of time to catch up with everything that's going on. It needs you to rest and recalibrate, especially towards the end of the month. And then on the 30th, there's that solar eclipse, which is huge. It can bring up issues of inflammation, especially, but it's all tied to your emotions. It's all tied to forgiveness. It's all tied to kind of deciphering this like web of pain that has to do with the people around you and how much they've taken from you and how much they give you. There's a lot of this kind of generosity introspection. You're looking at the people around you who you've been extremely generous with, either with your time or your money, your emotions, your trust, and you're finding yourself, especially at this solar eclipse in Taurus, like really looking with a light perhaps that you couldn't use before. You know, like those certain lights you can flash and you can see things that you can't see normally. Like with the black light, like it's like that. The solar eclipse for you is shining a light on something that you have a lot of perspective on. You've done a lot of work and you are very choosy. But I think this is deeper. I think that you have a blind spot when it comes to generosity and gratitude. And I think if people figure that out, they can kind of falsify their gratitude and really get in very close to you by constantly playing what I like to call the semi-victim. Like Leo doesn't necessarily like victims, but they love people who are trying really hard to get back up on their feet, but life is just giving them a bum rap, you know? And I get it too, I feel it too, of course everyone does, but you have to guard your personal power, because if people figure out that that's the key with you, they'll definitely play that, and they'll play it up a lot, you know? It's like you kind of wake up from a stupor and you're like, man, I've been helping this person for like years, but like they don't have a job. Wait, you know what I mean? It's like you see yourself as a resource, and you reconnect with that value within yourself, and all of a sudden you can feel all the different places where it's being siphoned away, even your own thoughts, even your own patterns, and it feels ick instead of normal, and you feel the drain instead of being drained all the time. And so it's like bittersweet, because you're like, yes, I'm full, but it's also like, oh my God, I'm draining, and how long have I been draining? Oh my God, how long have I been empty? But you're full now, and your season is just around the corner, and it's going to be beautiful, inshallah, and everything that you're processing right now is perfectly on time, and you are perfectly on time, and I know you're really big on being appropriate, and you are handling this beautifully, and you are appropriate. You fit the scene, baby. You fit the scene. Love you. Let's look at the cards. Hi, Leo. Welcome to the second part of your reading. Okay. Let's start with that Chariot card. Most of the second part of the reading will be in the extended. Right now we're just going to take a cursory look and kind of reiterate what we just went over, but in a way that makes more sense when you have the visual. And then getting into how it applies, leading into May, and how the different signs interact with you during the month, going deeper into the meaning of each card and the traditional meanings of the cards. That we'll all do in the extended, and that extended is available on Patreon, on Vimeo, and through an instant link. Patreon being the easiest way, because you sign up and then you just get everything as soon as it's done. So part 1 as soon as it's done, part 2 as soon as it's done, extended. Now, one of the most important aspects of the Chariot card is its nod towards forgiveness and giving people their freedom. I think that's really important, especially considering Cancerians, who are just a little bit behind you, are very much wrangling with this idea of freedom right now. And I think you are too, but just in a different way. Your freedom is more about not choosing self. You're good at choosing self. It's more about being okay with other people not being okay with you choosing self. It's not really your problem as much as it is you accepting that other people's problems are not your problems. Perhaps that's the way to put it. The healing, the romantic energy, the lust, it's all tied up with this pain and this wounding and this bleeding, and it's all very primal and carnal. So if you have a recent connection that encompasses that, it's very likely that they're still holding on to it. Perhaps you are too, a little bit. That's one of the things you may discover at this time. And it could pull them back into your life, not necessarily a good thing. Unless you're both being adult and understanding that this is obviously the healing of some wound, or that this relationship spoke to an earlier wounding. It's all, indicative of something further back. And as we go through this process, as you're going through this process, you come up on these waves of knowing yourself again and becoming more and more yourself. And there's this joy that comes with each recognition as you trace your, let's say, programming back to its source. Every time you deprogram a little, you have this fresh sense of awareness and this invigorating spirit. It's very addictive to be around this journey that you're on, because you haven't always been on this journey, and it's not always easy to be around you when you're directionless, but you've had a set direction for quite some years now. You've become very focused, dare I say, mature emotionally, and it kind of happened under people's noses. Maybe the pandemic had a lot to do with it. I'm not sure. I would like to think it was just time, but it happened rapidly and quietly. And I think a lot of people are probably still judging you for the person you used to be. And they think that, it's too good to be true that you could have so radically changed. What they don't understand is that you haven't changed at all. You've just become more yourself. You were always this person. What it does actually is show you how little they know you. And you'll also notice the people that profess to know you the best or the most, or the people that profess to be the closest to you, seem to know you the least or understand you the least. It can almost become a point of contention with some people, especially people who are nosy. They desperately want to know things. They desperately want information or a way in. And Leos are notorious for stonewalling people like that. And I think that people get upset. They become resentful. Why won't you let me into your light? Why won't you let me into your inner circle? And it's bizarre because nobody asks that of anybody else. It's fairly obvious why one wouldn't let you into their inner circle, because you're not a part of it. But there's this strange assumption that Leos should always be sharing. And you may take this very personally. You may feel this very deeply, especially if you're a Leo rising. Because you are dealing with these themes right now of giving and too much giving, and who's taking too much, and is it justified, and where are you being led around by the nose? Who's taking you for a ride? How many different metaphors can I come up with? What it comes down to is, I think that you need to reorient yourself based on who you are now, not who you used to be. And that means also, taking into account how people treat you and what their role is in your life. what it used to be, who you used to be, who you are now, what it should be now. You know, I can tell you from personal experience that there are things that definitely were no problem, no issue whatsoever a year ago that I absolutely cannot tolerate in people around me now. Because my life and my work and, you know, mashallah, and everything is going in a direction where things that seemed totally normal a year ago are quite a liability now. I'm talking about the behavior amongst my friends and my peers, people that I would choose to have around me. So I can stay in the identity of the person I used to be, and I can continue to behave like that person and not take into account what's going on in my life right now, what I need in my life right now. And because I'm working off of an old data set, I'm going to come up with faulty conclusions, and that will only harm me. God forbid. That's the danger of not being aware of where you are now, because regardless of whether you're aware of where you're at or not, other people are keenly aware. Whether they're nice and friendly and wonderful or they're predatory, doesn't matter. They can all tell. So the only person who's still working off of old information is you. Now, if that's out of some like sense of humility or, you know, it doesn't matter, it's misplaced. This is just, it makes no sense here. There's no reason for you to be humble when it comes to logically sitting down and evaluating where you're at and what your needs are because of where you're at. All you're doing is updating info. This is not about humility or ego. See, the thing with Leos is like we scare you guys so much with all this talk about ego that then you like stop doing things that are totally normal and healthy and logical that you should be doing because you don't want to be seen as that person. Be that person. Be that person. There's nothing wrong with it. This is, you see what I'm saying? It's all fractal. It's speaking to the same thing. Be that person. Be who you are. And unapologetically just do it. And part of being who you are and being unapologetic about it is recognizing where you are when you're there and what you need around you accordingly. And no, you know, that doesn't mean you can just bring all your friends along, even if they're not good for you. No, you can't keep paying people's bills or giving people money that you don't, you know, like none of this stuff. You have to stop all of it. Interestingly, while it's your task to be updating your self-image, right? And therefore updating what's happening around you at the same time as that's your task, everyone around you is going to kind of lean into treating you like the person you used to be just a few years ago. Oh, the frustration. You'll feel it. You'll feel the test like, oh, wow, this is a test. But instead of giving them what they want and slipping back into that old person, just realize that they're a test and, you know, be stubborn. You're good at that. Be stubborn about passing it. You'll pass. Inshallah, it's going to be great. I love you, love you, love you. I will see you in the extended tomorrow morning. I like to sleep on it and get some more perspective, and then I'll be back in the morning. Patreon, Vimeo, instant. Love you. Oh, and if you want a personal reading, there's a Cameo link below. Recorded readings sent to you. Or if you prefer live one-on-one FaceTime readings, that's also through Cameo, but you just go to the Cameo link and you join the fan club. And whenever I go live to do readings, you'll get a notification and then you'll know. Also, if you're going to be in London from April 15th to the 18th, I'm doing live readings those 3 days, only about 4 readings a day. So they're very limited slots, but I will leave the contact info below for Nicola, my assistant, and he can schedule you. And last but not least, if you are interested in a daily horoscope where we take a look at the transits and how they apply to your rising especially, but also your sun and moon, come join us at The Quietest Revolution on Instagram. And a little note on social media, if anyone is reaching out to you from any account whatsoever on any platform saying that they are me and soliciting you for a reading, please immediately block them and report them as a scam or fraud account. I'll never solicit you for a reading. Okay? Love you. I'll see you in the extended.